Good afternoon. Y'all can keep talking, okay? You don't have to stop. We're gonna give about 5 minutes. We've got a lot of committees that started late and bills that are being presented. So we're gonna give our committee members just a couple more minutes to hopefully get here. If not, we'll get started in just about 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, we'll try this again. We'll probably have a few more members step in, hopefully, after they finish the work they're doing in committee right now, but it's good to have everybody here together today as we begin to focus on this very important budget. Before we start, let's just pause just a minute and pray. If y'all would bow with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today and we ask that you open our ears and our hearts. Help us to listen well, to understand the heartfelt issues that are being presented to each of us today in this budget hearing. Help us to carry on, to stay healthy, and please bless everyone who has traveled here and give them mercy as they continue back to their own homes to work in the special places where they deliver so much of the work that comes out of this budget. We ask all this in your name today. Amen. Okay, so we're going to jump right in. Our first presenter for the 2026 budget is the Department of Human Services, and I believe Commissioner Broach is here to start us off today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I will go right into it with just a handful of slides. Let's see. Okay. So here you can see totals for the governor's recommendations for the Department of Human Services for fiscal year 2026. And there are recommended reductions for statewide adjustments for FY26 totaling $627,409. There are reductions in premiums for insurance programs run by the Department of Administrative Services. You'll also see reductions in state funds to reflect a slightly higher drawdown in the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage, or FMAP. There are two increases related to TeamWorks, which is the statewide personnel management and financial system, and there's one increase under Federal Eligibility Benefit Services for the Teachers Retirement System to cover an employer contribution increase. So combined, you reach the FY26 statewide adjustment reduction of $627,409. For program-specific adjustments in fiscal year 2026, I believe that is your page 5, line 28.2.2. Under child abuse and neglect prevention, there's a reduction of $93,233. That is to reflect lower collections of marriage and divorce filing fees in fiscal year 24. And those fees are statutorily earmarked for this specific program budget. Should be the same page for you, line 28.3.2, but under child support services, there's an increase just shy of $61,000. The Division of Child Support Services works with families to ensure financial support for children. The division enforces property liens and collects lump sum payments for eligible cases, but it currently lacks advanced matching capabilities offered by the Child Support Lien Network. Without this state funding, we would forego nearly $2.7 million in potential child support collections on an annual basis. On line 28.4.3, but under child welfare services, there's a recommended reduction of $1.5 million for a wraparound services pilot. Last year, state funds were added to match federal funds for a pilot with the vendor Unite Us, which offers a closed-loop referral system and care coordination that we rolled out for juvenile courts in 58 counties statewide. The idea was that those courts and their staff could leverage Unite Us and their platform for children in need of services cases to prevent those children from being unnecessarily removed from their homes and placed into foster care. But unfortunately, last year, the U.S. Administration for Children and Families deemed the pilot an ineligible use of federal Title IV-E matching funds. Under that, you'll again note $1.7 million in state funds for court-appointed special advocates to cover the loss of federal funds for our Georgia CASA contract. That's been a long-time contract with our agency. That, too, was a change in interpretation last year by our federal regulators, where we were funding the contract with federal dollars, and this state fund add will cover that loss. On page 6, line 28.8.2, under Elder Community Living Services, you'll again see a transfer of $225,000 to the Department of Public Health for brain health awareness. This also reflects what we had in the amended, and that is because DPH has existing capacity in this particular subject area. On line 28.10.4, there's a yes caption to utilize existing funds to improve how we process more complex Medicaid eligibility cases. On line 28.14.2, under residential childcare licensing, there's also a yes caption to utilize existing funds to hire an employee for implementation of 2 new license types following recent changes to state law. I mentioned this in my prior budget testimony, but that would be for qualified residential treatment programs and commercial sexual exploitation recovery centers. Both of those new program types will allow our agency to draw down federal funding for congregate care settings for children in foster care that we previously have not been able to leverage. We have a qualified residential treatment program pilot up and running, a 10-bed location at Murphy Harps. It is already at capacity. We're really excited that we've been able to get that running and grateful to Murphy Harps for that tremendous partnership. We also have a commercial sexual exploitation recovery center in Grace's Place, which is a 24-bed facility in Gwinnett County for children in foster care who are survivors of human trafficking. On page 8, line 28.24.1, under the Safe Harbor for Sexually Exploited Children Fund Commission, there's a recommended reduction of $120,110 to reflect fiscal year 24 collections of financial penalties for sex trafficking and sexual offenses, along with adult entertainment establishment assessments. And lastly, you've heard me talk about this in my prior testimony for the amended budget. The out-of-home care budget provides for temporary living arrangements for children who cannot safely remain in their homes due to abuse, neglect, or other serious family issues. And the funds appropriated in this program budget go toward ensuring that these children are placed in safe environments while efforts are made to either reunify them with their families or find a permanent home through adoption or guardianship. We do not fund staff in this program budget. Approximately 10,000 children are in foster care in Georgia on any given day, and while that number of children in care has remained mostly steady since 2020, utilization of specialized services and placements has increased by 23% since FY 2022, and reimbursement costs outside of daily per diem payments have increased by 15%. Historically, growth in out-of-home care has been appropriated for in both the supplemental and base budgets, as happened in 2018, 2019, and 2020, and that allowed us to meet projected expenditures in the current fiscal year and appropriately allocate resources. For fiscal year 26, we are projecting an additional $44,470,858 as a need in state funds in FY 26, again, to meet projected expenditures in out-of-home care. This increase is primarily driven by increased utilization and cost of wraparound services, such as supervision and transportation, and especially an increase in specialized foster placements. That's all for me. Thank you for your time, and I'll gladly take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Representative Oliver.
Madam Chair, I apologize for being late. And I assume, Commissioner, and correct me if I'm making an incorrect assumption, that you talked about the $1.7 million to create the Special Victims Unit. Did you talk about that?
No, ma'am.
Is it in this budget for 26?
No, ma'am.
It was in the 25 budget?
It was a House addition in the amended budget.
So it's in the 25 budget. It's for the Senate. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When I asked you about that in our earlier committee member, you said there wasn't going to be a budget for the Special Victims Unit, but now it seems to be appearing at $1.7 million.
Can you repeat your question? I can't hear you very well.
You can't hear me? I'm sorry.
I cannot.
I'll speak up. Thank you. When I asked you about the special victims unit before, you said you were moving some people and you didn't anticipate a budget. But a budget has come forward just after our committee and was added by the House. Is this a permanent budget item for continuation, or can you give me any more details about it?
I appreciate the additional funding that the House put into the amended fiscal year 25 budget. I think it shows that they believe that the Special Victims Unit is doing good work, and in fact that unit has been focused on recovering missing foster children at a faster clip with more dedication to the work than previously existed in DFAC's history. But at the end of the day, I mean, what we've done is we know it's important work, and so we're willing to absorb the cost, and that's what we've been doing.
Did you ask for the 1.7 from the House Leadership Appropriations Committee?
No, ma'am.
It just appeared without you asking for it.
Although I appreciate it, I think that if any funding means that we can exponentially do more, which is fantastic for these children and what they have survived. It's some of the stories are truly harrowing. I mean, these are cases that I'm personally involved with, and you just cannot imagine what these children endure. But it is a miracle whenever you are able to find them and again work through some, the recovery process from their trauma.
I
I
agree
appreciate the support.
I agree they're horrific cases. You're right about that. My concern is looking at past legislation we've passed about protocols, child abuse protocols that are mandated in law, that you are moving into a territory where DFACS does not have legal authority, perhaps. I'm raising the question. And have you done a review of your law enforcement authority under law today versus the law enforcement authority of the sheriffs as defined under the child abuse protocol statute?
Yes.
Okay, and you're clear that you have the legal authority to do what you're doing today?
Yes. I am a lawyer.
Would it surprise you to hear that other people disagree with that opinion?
I'm not surprised to hear that. I do. It is difficult for me to reconcile. It's no secret that my agency just endured a blistering U.S. Senate investigation where we were accused of not doing enough to look for missing foster children, when in fact we were. There was a lot of misinformation in that regard that we were not given a fair opportunity to refute. But now that we are, in fact, putting more resources and time and energy into it, now we're being criticized for it. So that is why it's tough for me to reconcile. But again, I'm thankful for the additional support. I'm confident where we are in doing this work. I think that it's innovative, and it's gratifying. At the end of the day, what we're doing is we are putting more resources toward recovering children that go missing from our custody. And they go missing because they are lured away by predators, or they have deep-seated trauma, and that trauma manifests in behaviors that makes them leave their placement. I don't pretend to have all of the answers, and I don't pretend that I will be devoid of criticism for some of the decisions that I make, but at the end of the day, I stand by this confidently, and the statistics speak for themselves.
Final question, Madam Chair, if I may. I think you and I both I'm supposed to be in juvenile justice on another bill you're proceeding with to give you the legal authorities. Am I correct? Is that the bill that you're presenting? You may have already presented it and I missed it.
There is currently a piece of legislation, I think you're referring to a bill that Chairwoman Mandy Ballinger has introduced. That particular piece of legislation will change the CSAM or child porn possession statute in Georgia to allow DFACS workers in the course of their duties to possess sexually explicit materials. Now, I understand why that would give people pause. The reality is that we investigate sexual abuse, and we do, in fact, get some of these materials. And that means that a case manager is literally breaking the law unless she can find a way to work with law enforcement and try to get some shield to prevent possible jail time. That means that children that are trafficked before they came into foster care or while they're in foster care, if they do go missing, and we find ads for sexual services because their trafficker posts them online, and that happens. It's hard to imagine, but that in fact happens. If we find those ads, and that is possession, that is a straightforward violation of the law, and that is a felony with serious jail time if we merely possess it. So that is what the bill is designed to do. It is not designed to creep into the territory of law enforcement's jurisdiction. It is to protect DFAC's case managers so they can properly do their job. And it also clearly has language that says in the course of their duties. I'm not talking about, and I don't think Chairwoman Ballinger is looking for any protection whatsoever for someone that is doing something improper where they deserve accountability outside of their job. But this is to protect DFAC's case managers when they're trying to protect children.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee members? Not seeing any. I'd like to give you an opportunity to explain, because I know out-of-home care is where we're seeing such a huge addition. And Commissioner, I wonder if you could explain to us what are some of the most expensive wraparound services that drive this deficit, so we could just better understand it.
I would say behavior aids would be a big one. So if you have children that are in foster care and they have developmental disabilities, intellectual disabilities, they have autism, they're medically fragile. Oftentimes our providers will ask that they have additional help with a behavior aid. Maybe the behavior aid provides comfort to this child that the staff at that facility or in that home just may not have that rapport with the child. We see that a lot, actually. And that can be expensive at an hourly rate, but it can really work wonders with the child too. So that certainly can drive up costs. And that's really what I would say is the driver, is we have more complex children entering care, and every child welfare agency across the nation is dealing with that as everyone emerges from COVID.
One other question too, are kids seeming to exit at the same rate that currently entering, or are we still having more come in and fewer leave?
That's a good question. Census.
I know that was a question that the House Budget Office requested, and we've been pulling some of the data, and we are going to give that. I would say, I could be wrong, but I get regular reports, at least weekly, where I can see these trends, and to me it seems like they're almost dead even, but we'll get better data than what I'm just noticing when I get a weekly report.
Okay. Well, good. All right. Anything else from the committee? If not, is there anything you'd like to say in closing at all? Or?
I just appreciate the support for our agency and for the frontline workers. I really do. I want to say, especially for investments in our workforce across the board. I mentioned this last time, but I want to say it again. Across the board, except for one category, turnover is reduced. And in some areas it's not by a ton, but it is still down categorically. And that means that we're keeping people longer, and we're able to recruit quality workers, and that's really important for our agency since we interact with so many people on any given day. So thank you for your support for our agency in that way.
Well, thank you. We want to do all we can to help you have the workforce that you need, no doubt, and to make sure they're equipped to handle, particularly, as you say, these challenging children. So thank you so much. If we have any other questions, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next, I believe, is Veteran Services with Commissioner Patricia Ross. I want to remind everyone to, at the back on about the second row up there where there's a water bottle here on the right, there is a sign-up sheet. If anyone who's here would like to speak or give public comment or share some information that you have with us, we'd love for you to do that. This committee works well off of true life, real life stories. So please make sure you take a minute to sign up, and we will call you up at the end of the meeting. When you are ready, Commissioner.
Yes, ma'am. There we go. Thank you so much for having me here. I am definitely honored to be in front of this committee, and thank you for all that you have done. I know I appreciate the amended FY25 budget and y'all's support. You've been so receptive and understanding to caring for our veterans. And it's not just an obligation that we have to those who have sacrificed so much for our country, but it is our honor. I'd like to thank my friends and fellow veterans here from the Atlanta Vietnam Veterans Business Association, as well as key members of my team, budget analyst, executive director over health and memorials, and chief development officer and chief financial officer. You know, these folks have my back, literally, for this testimony, and it's them and about 1 million other veterans in the state is why we're here to address some of the shortfalls in our budget. So I do want to thank you specifically for the $1.5 million to keep our current bed count in our 2 war veteran homes, as well as our $1 million to open the subacute therapy unit, also known as a med psych facility. So the first few slides are going to go pretty quick. So we are at the very bottom, 48.1, and we've got 4 programs in departmental administration. You can see we are not recommending any changes to the adjustments for the Department of Administrative Services insurance or teamwork building, so we concur with the governor's recommended budget. Moving to the next, this one's just one little change. So this is our second program, our Georgia Veterans Memorial Cemetery. If you look at 48.2.1, what inadvertently happened, and this has already been worked with OPB, and I believe Ms. Mack is already in this loop, we show an increase in the teacher's retirement system. For our cemetery workers, they are not under this system. That program item actually should be in our war veterans homes, and so you'll see we reduce it from this program. And then that goes to our Augusta University staff who run our Augusta home, affectionately known as the Blue Goose. So other than that, we're not recommending any other changes to the governor's budget. And then when you go to the next slide, you can see where we've added to the appropriate program, which is our war veterans homes. In green, hopefully you can see that. We do ask for a base budget increase for that $1.5 million that you allocated us in your recommended amended FY25 budget. And then based on historical trends, we know that the VA increases the cost about 5% each year. So 1 October, they give us a 5% increase in what they pay towards our patient care, which we're supposed to match, plus at least 1 cent. And what has happened is because we've not kept up with that, that's why we had asked for that inflationary increase. And so in all full transparency, 1 October is when that takes effect, that rate takes effect. And so we are projecting for that 9 months, it would be a 3.75% increase, which is an additional $56,250. So as discussed in the amended budget presentation, we're required to be at 90% occupancy. We're currently at 54% occupancy. So if we have state matching funds for an additional 100 beds, which is what's on there, at about $53,000 per person per bed for a year, we will be right at about 88.9% occupancy. And so that is why we are requesting funding for an additional beds, and that would be across both facilities. And so these additions, if approved, will be an additional 6.8, just about $6.8 million in our War Veteran Home baseline, and that's excluding what was already programmatically or will be programmatically changed for the TRS allocation. In our Veterans Benefits Program, you already heard Commissioner Brose talk about this, but as recommended by both this committee and the governor was to continue our use of the Unite Us platform, that closed loop referral system that we use across the department as well as with our partners within the technical college system. This year we were able to match state funds with grant funds to get us through, but we do need funding to make that no longer a program but a sustainable technology solution, again in keeping with the governor's priority of using technology to be more efficient and, in our case, expand services we can provide our veterans, our military, and their families. And so we're requesting what is the annual expense for Unite Us, just shy of $3.5 million in the base budget, so we can continue this program. And this is a brand new slide. I know I gave you a lot of data on Unite Us during my amended brief, but we received the latest quarter worth of data. And just to highlight, we have now helped over 16,000 military veterans or their family members across the state of Georgia, which is an increase of 40% in social service needs and cases created and then accepted and resolved by community partners since we launched the program in late 2021. So that's our most current data. So today I'm going to spend most of my time in our capital projects, which I know is not typical. So if you look in the governor's budget, we're at the very bottom, page 369, line 85. We were provided matching state funds to apply for a VA grant to replace our air handling units, roofing, flooring, drives, and install cameras at our home in Milledgeville. So a successful VA grant application is based on typically two things. We're either adding beds or it's a life and safety fix. So routine maintenance, such as what is in this line item, typically is not approved for VA matching funds. What we would like to ask is these funds be redesignated to finish our elevator project in Milledgeville, which you'll see on line 86. So while the VA may consider the elevator replacement to be life and safety, we do have difficulty getting parts. Our elevators are at the end of their lifespan, and we also have an issue with timing. And let me explain how the timing works. So the federal VA grant cycle, we have to submit our grant application by the April 15th each year. And so I've already signed the letter. We will get that application in early in accordance with the yes on line 86 that OPB and the governor has asked us to do. The challenge is we won't know until next April if, based on the rack and stack with every other state's request, if we will be on that list for funding. And then we won't actually see funding until the next federal fiscal year, which at the earliest is October 2026. So we've already started our elevator project, but don't have the funding to complete it. So what we typically do, and this is what we're requesting from y'all, is to, again, apply for the matching VA grant they do match a portion of it for the elevators for this next fiscal year, and then if we do receive it, which again is not guaranteed, we could redesignate that now the funding we would receive from the VA to then replace the chillers, do the flooring, the roofing, and all of the other items that we need to upkeep that facility and do all of the maintenance that is required. And so it's shifting funds because of the grant cycle. So I know that sometimes is confusing, but it takes about 2 years to get VA funding, even when we put in an application by the deadline of April 15th. So So I know I talked to you last year, and you saw when I talked about the amended budget, our need for new veterans homes. So you can see that based on the report that was done in November 22 in the Senate committee, that we need more geographically dispersed homes, and of course, we're only meeting about 13% of what's required for the state. So South Georgia is the first location we're looking at to be able to stand up a new home. And what we've been given, it's about $100 million. Again, that's a matching construction grant with the VA. VA would pick up 65% or $65 million. We would fund $35 million in the state is what we're requesting. Now, again, that's the same grant cycle. So if we get it in FY26, we would be applying on April 15th of 2026 for the grant, and it would still take a couple of years for us to be able to get the funding from the VA to then go ahead with a construction project. So this is truly a long-term solution, but requires funding now to be able to even get on the list with the VA. And let me tell you why. So I know you saw a kind of a similar graphic, and we just went ahead and blew it up for you. So you can see how our fellow states, they do have geographical disbursement of their war veterans' homes. And so, again, we only have our 2 homes. We know that this is an increasing need across our state. And let me tell you about a case that I've been working as late as this past weekend. So this past fall, I received a call from the governor's office regarding what they believed was a VA issue but wanted us to help. So we had a 100% permanent and total disabled Vietnam veteran who had been in a tragic automobile accident, and the crash took the life of his beloved wife of almost 56 years. It left him with a traumatic brain injury, and he was unaware of what happened, spent time in ICU, was moving to rehab, which is why they called me, because the daughter had no idea where they would place him, and she could not take care of him. So his family, who was heartbroken, struggling, searched desperately for a place to be able to provide his care. And so I ended up getting involved. His daughter wanted him to stay close to home so he could be near family and folks that he still recognized, even though I did offer him space in Augusta and in Milledgeville. So I reached out to the facility that they were considering. I spoke to management and secured assurances that they could accept him using his VA benefits, and he ended up moving to that facility. So fast forward to last month. While the VA approved about 9 hours of a patient sitter's assistance, it fell drastically short of what he truly needed. Because he's disoriented and at a high risk for falls, he had already been hospitalized 6 times. The governor's office then requested my help in engaging the VA to increase the number of hours he had at patient center to keep him stable and to keep him in his bed. And despite my efforts this last week to try and connect with the Atlanta VA, I have not received a response, leaving me uncertain actually if my contacts are even still employed there. So his daughter, who is a nurse, has now taken a leave of absence as of this week to take care of him herself, because she's overwhelmed but unwavering in her commitment to her father. But her words to me echo the struggles of so many. Why is my honorably discharged disabled father not taken care of? Why can't I get help for him? This is not right. So her story and countless others like it highlight a heartbreaking reality that our veterans deserve better. Their service and sacrifice should be met with unwavering support and not bureaucratic roadblocks. And this is why I thank you so much, this committee, for continuing to fight for more homes, more care, and more dignity for those who gave so much for our country. So thank you, as always, for your support, and I would appreciate any questions. Thank you, Representative Oliver. I'm assuming, Madam Chair, I'll let you recognize her, but she hit her button, I saw it.
She's pointing at me. I know. She already hit that button. I can see it. She did. Thank you for your presentation. Representative Oliver.
I wasn't going to get ahead of the chair's opportunity to
And I apologize
or
for that.
recognize anybody else. Thank you very much. Of 486 beds available today, what is your capacity today? How many beds are filled?
264.
So you have empty beds in
Yes, ma'am.
Augusta and in Milledgeville, and in relation to your story, which is a compelling one, the family was offered one of those beds, but it was a geography issue that gave them pause. Is that
Correct.
accurate? Is that usually true?
Not typically. So as every answer, it depends. So we do have a waiting list at our home in Milledgeville and in Augusta.
What's your waiting list?
So it's right now 25 in Milledgeville. I have about 5 or so in Augusta, and that's with us not advertising, because without the matching state funding, I cannot open any of the beds even though they're available. So
And-
this is all we can fund.
54%, I used to understand this math, and forgive me for not
Yes,
keeping
ma'am.
up with that. 54% of your 280-something individuals you're caring for now, 54% is state money, and the rest of it's federal money?
The way it works, so we have 486 beds total. But the way our funding formula works is the state has to pay at least 1 cent more towards the cost of care. They can pay more, but at least 1 cent more than what the VA reimburses us for. That ends up being a set rate for those that are at 70% or higher disabled, and then it is actually based on geography for those that have a lower disability rating. And so as the VA, and I know I can go back to my amended slides, we've got a great graph that shows the VA has increased year over year about 5%. Just in the last 2 fiscal years, it's 10.6%. They're funding to reimburse us. But if the state doesn't match that increase, all we've had to do is reduce beds. We've reduced beds in Milledgeville by 100 in the last 5 years because of not getting state appropriations to match the federal funds. And we've left about $8.3 million on the table in federal funding if we had the matching state funds to go along with it. So it's almost not quite a 50-50 split because the state does have to cover at least that in cost of care.
And the family pays no money?
Not necessarily correct. So there are patient fees. As of 1 February, they went up to $31.04 a day per patient. So either the family does that through VA benefits if they are disabled and are receiving some sort of compensation, or qualify for pension.
There's an AD&D program of some kind. I may have those initials incorrect that has additional federal funding.
Yeah, pension and aid and attendance.
Right. Aid and attendance, that's what
Yes, ma'am.
But if we brought the state match up so we'd be in compliance, we could fill the beds without
ma'am.
building a new $100 million facility.
We could, but we're still so the VA says we should be at 1,975 beds. So we're still about 1,500 beds short of what the VA says we should have in the state of Georgia. And if you look at that slide, you can see the states that surround us that have a half to a third our veterans population have 5 and 6 homes, again geographically dispersed so that they can meet the needs of veterans and the families that do want to keep them closer to home.
How
So
many,
yes,
forgive me, this is the last one. How many of the states surrounding us accept Medicaid as part of the federal payment for veterans nursing homes?
Okay, so the states surrounding us that do accept it, Florida does, and Mississippi. The other 2 do not. And I had this conversation earlier with Chairman Watson from the Senate committee. So what the cost of care, if we were to go to Medicaid, one, there's a significant administrative burden for that, and we're already inspected by the VA, by the state, by the Joint Commission, so it would add that. But the cost to the state is the same, because with that patient fee, we add that to the state appropriations. So in essence, the funds the state pays out is about the same that they pay in the Medicaid facilities based on those locations. So it doesn't save the state any money, but yet it allows that veteran to keep their estate and their family to keep some benefits, some funding that they may have.
Thank you.
Thank you for those great questions.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Well, I'm not seeing any, and you've given us so much good information. I appreciate it. I love the support that you're getting too, just the great team that you bring, but also those of you who are veterans, thank you so much for your service, and thank you for being here. And you are supporting a very good effort. The commissioner's doing a great job. We thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from the Council on Aging. Executive Director Deborah Stokes, come up and update us.
Thank you, Chair Lady Dempsey and the committee for allowing us to have this time before this great committee. This is my 4th year presenting for the Council on Aging, and it is the first year I've actually had to have a budget ask that covers the council staff itself. But initially, I'd like to introduce our chairman of our co-age committee, who's going to speak to the committee regarding our $2.5 million request for home and community-based services funding. This is a perennial ask. We ask for these funds every year because every year there are people who are eligible to receive these benefits and they are not able to get them because the funding is not there. So I'd like to introduce Eve Anthony. She is our chair of the Council on Aging Co-Age Committee.
Good afternoon, Chairman Dempsey, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Like Deborah said, my name is Eve Anthony, and I am an appointed member of the Georgia Council on Aging. I'm also the president and CEO of the Athens Community Council on Aging. We are a nonprofit that provides contracted essential home and community-based services to older adults in Georgia. So I recently read an article in an email from the group Grantmakers in Aging. And that article was titled, Cousin Jane's Biggest Fear. Jane was a teacher, she was a planner, and she was a woman who built a life that she truly loved. But as she aged, her biggest fear wasn't being ill or being isolated, it was outliving her resources. So rising housing and healthcare costs drained her savings, and she was terrified of losing everything and ending up homeless. And this concern is increasingly common for older adults. According to a 2023 report by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, older adults are the fastest growing age group among those who are experiencing homelessness, compromising nearly half of our current homeless population. And her story is not unique. In fact, it reminded me of a conversation that I recently had with one of the seniors that we serve, Miss Marion. Miss Marion worked her entire life in Athens. She saved what she could, and she lived a modest life. However, rising costs of food, utilities, and health care, she now also worries daily about outliving her resources and potentially losing her home. She doesn't require full-time care, just a few visits each week from a personal care aide. She gets Meals on Wheels, and then we provide transportation to medical and other critical community appointments. And without these services, her independence and well-being are at risk. And she's not alone. There are more than 9,000 seniors in Georgia waiting on a waiting list for services. And these are services like meals, home care, and transportation. These aren't luxuries. They are the critical services that allow seniors like Miss Marion to stay in their homes and out of more costly institutional care. And that's why I'm here today, to ask you to include $2.5 million increase in funding for home and community-based services. And beyond the human impact, investing in home and community-based services is also a fiscally responsible choice. The average cost of nursing home care in Georgia per person per year is $80,000. In contrast, home and community-based services cost the state an average of $1,500 per year per senior. That is a fraction of the cost. On average, home and community-based services can help delay premature nursing home care by 4 years. With this $2.5 million increase, Georgia could serve 4,900 more seniors. That's preventing unnecessary nursing home placement and saving millions in Medicaid spending. In fact, for every dollar invested in home and community-based services, our state would save approximately $3 in institutional care. So expanding for home and community-based service isn't just about what older adults want, it's a smart economics choice. And the demand for these home and community-based services is growing rapidly in Georgia. Nationally, this summer, we started experiencing a demographic shift. We refer to it as Peak 65, with 4.1 million seniors turning 65 each year through the year 2027. Very soon, and sooner than what was anticipated, we will have more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18 in Georgia. We saw what happened when this baby boom generation was born. Our country prepared for them. We built them schools, we built them parks, we had infrastructures to prepare for this growth. Now, these same individuals are aging, but we haven't prepared for them as they age. Investing in home and community-based services is a crucial step in catching up. The waiting list for services is not going to go away, it's just going to continue to grow. Without additional funding, more seniors will fall through the cracks, leading to higher Medicaid costs, increased pressure on our health care and emergency services, and devastating consequences for our families. So I believe that we have a choice. Invest in an affordable, dignity-driven solution that allows seniors to remain at home, which is truly where we all want to age, or pushing more seniors into costly institutional care and straining our state resources. State-funded resources like meals, home care, and transportation are not just supports, they are truly the foundation that allows people to age with dignity and security. So I think about my friend Marion and others like her who worry about outliving their resources. Without the vital support that these services provide, we no longer can think about longevity becomes a crisis instead of the blessing that we typically think about. So on behalf of the Georgia Council on Aging, our co-age members, and seniors throughout Georgia, I ask you to include this investment of $2.5 million in home and community-based services. Thank you so much for your time today and your commitment to Georgia's seniors, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So, good presentation. Appreciate it. Good ask.
Thank you.
Members of the committee, are there any questions or comments from anyone? We are quiet today. Oh, wait. Do we have one? Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Glaze. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. How many seniors are we supporting at this point throughout the state?
Oh, that's a good question. Do we have that number?
65 and older, it's 15% of the population, so it's 1.5 million.
That we're providing services to?
That are seniors within the state, that we are
No,
providing services.
that we're providing services in this, in the COAM.
In the home and community?
Yes.
That's a question for, we can get that for you. That the triple A's will have that data and be able to answer the exact number of seniors.
And so, but we do have the data saying that each senior who is on the program is receiving about $1,500 worth of services. Is that per month or for the year?
That is an annual cost, and it depends. Services are priced different and cost differently. So, of course, for example, providing a Meals on Wheels on average is $11 a day, where if you're providing personal home care, someone coming into the home, that's going to be much more costly.
Well, I certainly want to say this program helped my mother to live independently until she passed away at age 87. And I know the value of it and the dignity that is in this program. So again, I just want to thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone? Thanks for bringing us this good information. Oh, Deborah, you're going to keep going with us,
Yeah,
right?
this is
Okay.
this is
We'll
part
just
two.
pause. Yeah, good.
Oh, we got our slides all confused here. Here we go. That's okay.
I'll remind y'all that there is a sign-up sheet right here,
Thank you.
second from the back row, with a water bottle sitting there. If you would like to make any comment or a request while you're here today, please feel free to sign up, and we will get to those right after our last testimony. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay. I have, like I said, I've been here for 4 years. This is my 4th time presenting, and this is the first time I've had to ask for budget increases for my council staff. A little bit of information. This is the Georgia Council on Aging. It's comprised of 20 members who are not state employees. They are volunteers who offer their expertise within the aging universe, and they work very hard to protect the rights and to provide services for our aging population. Again, we meet quarterly with this group of people so that we can provide the advice and recommendations to state leadership that we were created to provide. Should. That's our staff. Our organizational chart is easy to follow. We are an attached agency to the Division of Aging Services within the Department of Human Services, and this is who we are for right now. It's not often that I have to come before this group and ask for anything other than support for our seniors directly, but I am asking for support for the personnel who support those seniors. In meeting our mission, the 3 of us travel. Let's see. This gives you an overview of our mission, and this slide presentation is in your packets for the committee members, but this gives you an overview of our mission and what it is we do on behalf of the aging population within the state. One of the offshoots of the council is the Coalition of Advocates for Georgia's Elderly. And I know you're all familiar with COAGE. It's been around forever. And just last week, we had our seniors here for Senior Day at the Capitol. You saw the green scarves. We had more than 400 registered guests. That doesn't include the guests who came who did not register for the event. And we appreciate the support and the involvement that the legislators had with their seniors. Many of them were able to meet with their legislators for the very first time, and they were very excited about it. So this is part of what we do, providing this opportunity for them to come into the people's house and experience how the legislature works. A little bit faster. The aging population is growing. Eve mentioned that, and everyone that I've ever spoken to already knows that my story is we're all getting older and we want to age well. So the services that we provide to the aging population through the Council on Aging include advocacy training, and we are out across this state helping people learn how to effectively advocate for the needs that they have identified. Most of us know that COAGE is a membership organization, and as a member of COAGE, our members are able to submit recommendations for issues that could be addressed through funding or through policy. And to coordinate those issues and that organization takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. We are one of the smallest attached agencies. As I said, our organizational chart is easy to follow. But fortunately, like many of you, you were elected to serve the people in your district who put you there. And we were placed in this position to serve our constituents. It just so happens that we are serving 1,540,444 seniors over the age of 65. So that's a fairly significant number of people to take care of. We're very proud of what we do, and we I don't believe that in the past 10 years, the scope of work that the council staff has done has ever been evaluated. So here we are asking for funding. Our little budget, I know you won't be able to find it on the tracking sheet unless I show you exactly where it is. So if my phone will cooperate, I will show you. It is under the Department of Human Services, Division of Aging Services, 28.17, Council on Aging. That's us. That's it. So we're asking for less than an additional $200,000 to increase staffing for the council staff to do what it is that we've been charged to do. Thank you, Madam Chair, Chair Lady, and the committee for listening to this. And I hope that in the years to come, I'm only asking for more funds for home and community-based services. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Are there any? Okay. Is it what number is that, say? 4?
See, let's do number 83.
Sure.
No? All I need is at your convenience, your cell phones, all three of you, and that way if I have a problem, I don't have to go through anybody else except the top. And that's something I'm very adamant about, but I do appreciate you. And
I must say that is also what we do. And with a staff of 3, that can get a little bit challenging, but we've been pretty successful in helping people navigate the system and get answers, or at least get people directed to the people who can give them the answers.
well, and I thank you because, you know, some of the committees are bigger. Some of the people we deal with, I don't ever mean it. I don't like to start here. I don't have time. I need to go to the top, and I get things done that way. So thank you very much, but I would like to have those, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Are the numbers listed in your information here, are these work numbers that are, because you're, under your staff, they're phone numbers.
Oh, yeah, those are work numbers.
Those are work numbers, okay. Well, we'll let Representative Donahue get with you in just a few
Absolutely.
minutes, and y'all can make sure to do
Absolutely.
that, and help him in that way.
Sure.
Are there any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Well, we thank you for the great work you're doing, and I know that as far as the staff, when we just did the amended budget, we did some money to help with that, and there is no doubt you've been working with very lean staffing.
Very lean.
Huge volunteer effort, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And so I hope we've got some people signing up out there, so we'll have some more conversation in a minute. Our next and final agency presentation comes from Georgia Family Connection. The Executive Director, Gay Smith, is here. And Gay, come catch us up.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to come before you today and express my appreciation on behalf of the Georgia Family Connection Network and the Georgia Family Connection Partnership for your support of our work. The Georgia Family Connection statewide network is a network of local collaboratives addressing the needs of our state's children and families. We ground ourselves in data and research-based strategies and then connect local knowledge with strong public-private partnerships to try to make lives better for our children and families. At the state level, the Georgia Family Connection Partnership connects and supports the statewide network so that we're constantly learning from each other, holding each other accountable, and ensuring local work is linked with state priorities and vice versa. In FY25, you appropriated Georgia Family Connection an additional $3,750 per county, bringing each county's allotment to $56,250. We are grateful to this committee and the entire General Assembly for this increase, and we respectfully request your continued support of our work. My colleagues and I are honored by the responsibility and trust you place in us. And like you, we are constantly seeking the best most efficient, and most informed ways to improve outcomes for children and families. It's a privilege to serve alongside you, working on key state priorities, such as improving third grade reading proficiency, mental health outcomes and access, as well as access to early learning opportunities. Our statewide network has proven to be a sound investment for the state. In FY24, we leveraged for communities $3.40 of cash and in-kind services per $1 of state funds. And
Okay,
we've
can I ask
maintained
you, can I ask you just to pause a minute? We're all we're trying to
Oh.
find our information here, and I think this is Representative Glazes, maybe? Where is
Yes,
that?
you should have a packet
Maybe, yeah, you
addressed
have
to
this
each of
one.
you
have
with
this
information about
It's
This
specific to
one.
our,
your
This one is
district.
to me. Do you have Glaze? Does somebody have it?
does somebody have Sames? See, it's
Yes,
specific
well,
to our
the
counties.
letter is tailored, is
Glaze.
from your
Here we
coordinator
go.
to
We're
you.
getting straight here. Just a minute. Let's
Okay,
get on task here. We just realized it as we sat down.
Who's got Sames?
Just a minute.
Do you have a packet, Chairman Holman?
I'll give you.
Oh. Are you okay? It's that one. That's specific.
Does it have your name on it? Okay, then you've got your information. That's good. Look at it. See. Okay.
Yes, I apologize for any
That's okay.
confusion.
That's okay. We're just getting straightened out up here. And were we missing one? Were we missing
Sames.
same? Okay.
I stole Cameron's, all right.
Okay.
Does everyone have one?
I think Representative Saines may have Representative Cameron's because he's not here right now, but that's okay. We can follow along. We're good. We're better now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, where were we? Oh, and we've maintained the return on investment with a 10-year average of $3.58 for every dollar in state dollars appropriated to us. You have asked us for an update on our hurricane relief efforts and the state performance audit. I'll speak to the state performance audit, and then I'll introduce our local coordinator to talk about our hurricane relief efforts. In June 2024, we were notified that the House of Representatives requested that the Georgia Department of Audits and Accounts conduct an audit of Georgia Family Connections' general activities statewide and how we determine and use key metrics. This is the first audit we've participated in and a welcome opportunity to showcase our work. We anticipate that we'll receive validation of the positive impact we're making and that we're using state dollars efficiently. Because we consider ourselves a learning organization, we're also hoping to gain insights into how we can be more effective, efficient, and accountable. Since the launch of the audit, GFCP has provided data to the Department of Audits and Accounts on behalf of the network immediately, including those related to key performance indicators. We've also facilitated auditors' attendance at local collaborative and regional meetings, interviews with local coordinators and private partner funding, and a survey of the statewide network, which yielded a 95% rate. We understand we will be receiving a report in or around May. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Elaine Spencer. She is our Family Connection Coordinator in Effingham County, and she's going to share some examples of what our work looks like on the ground as we do our day-to-day work to try to improve outcomes for kids and families, but also our unique ability to pivot quickly to deliver immediate assistance whenever there's a crisis, such as the recent Hurricane Helene. So with that, I'll introduce Elaine.
Thank you, Gay. And thank you, Chairwoman Dempsey and the committee for having us here today, and also for your steadfast support of Georgia Family Connection. It's so much appreciated. I also want to recognize and thank my local board member, Rebecca Boston. She has been a longtime Family Connection supporter, and I might add, one of the founders of Family Connection in Effingham County. I've been there 25 years, and she was there way before I was, so not telling your age, Rebecca, but, you know, if you'll stay in so people can see who you are. Come on, there you go. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for coming with me today. I'm here to share with you an update from Effingham County, as well as some of the other examples from my region in southeast Georgia. Kind of give you an idea of the type of work that is led by the Georgia Family Connection Network and what it leads across the state every single day. I want to illustrate how we leverage the state's investment in Family Connection to bring more resources to Georgia communities. And I'll share with you some examples of how Family Connection helped in the immediate aftermath and is continuing to help our communities recover from the recent natural disasters like Hurricane Helene. We use data to conduct a community assessment at our local Family Connection Collaborative in Effingham County to identify the need to improve the state of mental health in our community, and decided to implement a strategy to improve outcomes for all of our children. To help advance that work, Effingham County Family Connection secured $25,000 from Resilient Coastal Georgia to assist in providing research-based mindful awareness zones, which is MAZE, M-A-Z, in 5 of the Effingham County schools. This is just a pilot. We hope to continue these mindful awareness zones, and we have 13 schools in Effingham County, so our goal is to get them in all of our schools. The mindful awareness zone, it allows the student to take a time in versus a time out, and gives them a chance to sit down and just cool down. An additional $25,000 from Coastal Resilient Georgia will enable us to expand this work by providing training on Handle with Care, another resource-based program that's a partnership between local law enforcement and the school system that alerts school personnel when a student needs to be handled with care after having experienced something traumatic outside of school. That can be anything from abuse in the family to, it can just go on and on for any traumatic experience. This grant will also allow us to provide human trafficking awareness for girls 13, 17 years old, and hurricane and other natural disaster trainings for our law enforcement, first responders, Board of Education, and other Family Connection partners. While continuing our day-to-day work to improve mental health outcomes for our children and families, Effingham Family Connection also assisted in relief efforts from Hurricanes Debbie and Helene. Because of the trust, reputation, local knowledge, and community connections that we've built, Effingham County Family Connection received generous donations from our partners to help provide food, shelter, cleaning supplies, drinking water, septic tank inspections and repairs, well water treatments, hygiene items, and Christmas gifts from the children that were affected by these tropical storms and hurricanes that would not have otherwise had a Christmas. We're grateful we were able to assist 150 families and 50 children in need of our services who were identified through a collaborative effort of Effingham Family Connection, Effingham County School District, Effingham Emergency Management Assistance, and many other partners. Effingham Family Connection also assisted in securing counseling and other mental health services for storm victims, and we are continuing to assist the hurricane victims as the needs arise. Additionally, truckloads of many miscellaneous items have been donated to Effingham Family Connection from the local Dollar Tree Distribution Center because they know that we are the point of contact and we have our pulse on those that are in truly need of these items in our county. The total last year, Effingham Family Connection leveraged for our local children and families, $50,000 from Resilient Coastal Georgia to improve mental health outcomes, $5,000 from the Savannah, Georgia Board of Realtor for hurricane relief, $6,000 in food donations from Remax First Choice in Rincon for hurricane relief, and $20,000 for Quick Trip for hurricane relief. While we're not the only ones, I'd like to give 2 more brief examples of how Family Connection Collaboratives assisted significantly in relief efforts from both Hurricane Debbie and Hurricane Helene, which I think it was Debbie that hit us in August and Hurricane Helene hit us in September. So they were right there close by. So just briefly to tell you about what one of my neighboring counties, Bullitt County, was able to do during these devastating storms. Bullitt County Family Connection responded to 154 calls and emails from community and regional residents searching for help. And because of their connections to partners and their positions in the community, they were able to guide and broker services to help meet the immediate needs of local families. They shared with residents where to find and how to access resources, often walking, as we all do, walking the callers through the steps they needed to take to get their needs met, or connecting them with a personal organization to help overcome these barriers. In Bryan County, which is another neighboring county of Effingham, they work with community partners to provide emergency temporary housing for local residents affected by flooding as a result of Hurricane Debbie. The collaborative raised $72,000 and provided emergency housing for 77 families, which equates to 158 adults and 99 children for an average of 10 days per family. They also work to provide resources and referral options for these families. After Helene, Bryan County Family Connection helped to provide essential items for the families. Working alongside county department staff, they were able to organize ice and water distribution locations and collaborated with the Salvation Army of Savannah and Second Harvest of Coastal Georgia to provide hot meals to families in their community. They also worked with collaborative partners to organize 2 meal distribution locations, distributing approximately 3,000 meals, and provided food assistance for 140 families through their community food bank in the days following the storms. In closing, I want to reiterate that Family Connection conducted all this work to provide relief and leverage new resources in the face of crisis, in addition to our ongoing work to support children, families in these communities. In Effingham, as you all know, there's 159 counties in Georgia, and there's a Family Connection in every county. So we're all doing boots on the ground, and we're there for our families and children. As Family Connection coordinators, we were and are affected because we have our Family Connection peers in other communities to lean on and learn from, as well as existing trusting relationships with partners that allows us to move quickly and seamlessly in the face of disaster. Without your critical investment in this statewide network, none of this would be possible, so thank you very, very much. And I speak for all the Family Connection coordinators, I'm sure. And now that we are here to partner with you too in your work on behalf of Georgia's communities, please reach out to us and use us as a resource, because supporting you with data and information about our state's children and families is a key part of our mission. Thank you for all you do and for your continued faith and investment in Georgia Family Connection. Thank you so much.
Well, and thank you for your work. I was privileged long ago to be on a board in my own community in Floyd County, and understanding, I always say this, but it was the first time I really ever heard and understood fully what collaboration is and the great results that can come from that. So I thank you.
Thank you
for your work there. I know that this audit effort has been challenging. It's taken up a lot of time, a lot of hours. I feel like you're writing a book on the history of Family Connection, actually, from what I hear from all y'all are unearthing, I would say, in that. And I do think there's great confusion on what the Family Connection effort is and how active you are and how different it is in each and every community, how unique each place is, particularly, as you say, through the storms that we saw this year. There were some really profound opportunities, I think, to help. But I just want to say thank you for that, and also say thank you for just the work that you do daily. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? Okay, let's see if we can try that. Representative Sain.
Thank you, and thank you, Elaine. I know firsthand you are a commendable individual and take this work seriously. So, coming from a coastal friend, I know that drive is not fun always to the Capitol, but thank you for being here to educate us. Question in terms of the budget, given that there's two, the county appropriations and the state, and I think it would be fair to say that the county budget has stayed stagnant relatively. It's gone up and down from around 50,000. Has that impacted from what you've seen individually in your county for your Family Connection program versus what you've learned from maybe in your peer-to-peer network, the way that your Family Connection runs on the local level? As we understand, the power of the dollar is dramatically decreased, so I'd almost say it's a budget reduction from that angle. I don't know if there's anything to shed light on in that respect.
Well, you want to try to answer that one, Kay? Okay. Family Connection collaboratives, we do not depend on the money we get from the partnership. We use that, we take that money and we stretch it as far as we can stretch it. But a lot of our resources and our money comes from our other partners, and thank goodness they know us and they trust us, and they know that we're going to do what is best and what is right with this money that they've allotted us. But we could not do it, of course, without. But yeah, going from like 50,000 to, well, when Family Connection first started, I think we had $100,000 in the very beginning. Yeah, back yeah, the pilot. And so then, you know, it's been kind of back and forth, and 50,000, 55,000, 53,000, and yeah, as low as 42,000. So we have to work with what we have. We appreciate every penny we get from everyone, especially here. So thank y'all again very much. But we do depend on our partners to help us to reach out and to help our families and our children with things they need.
Thank
anything
you.
else?
No, that is great. But one connected question in terms of the statewide network, and this is by far a problem larger than Family Connection, but I didn't know if it would be an opportunity to shed light on some of the work being done, given the power of that state network. I don't think it's a secret. We've struggled for some of these programs that we've rolled out in the House. I'm thinking of the Georgia Pathways to Coverage program, in terms of connecting communities to the services we're offering and getting individuals who need that care actually enrolled in the services they are eligible for. Can you shed light on some of the work Family Connection is doing or maybe planning to do in terms of being I don't want to say a gatekeeper, but maybe a welcome mat to some of these services and connecting the local partners to those services and rollouts?
Well, I can, some of our newest partners in Effingham County is, don't know if y'all have heard of Thero's Place in Savannah. It's a home for teenage girls that have escaped from human trafficking. Julie Wade is the founder of Thero's Place. We are partnering with them on some things. Nothing concrete yet, but we have talked. So Thero's Place is one. And Family Connection opens the door for a lot of partners to step in, because they come to us and they want to partner with Family Connection. But other than...
I can talk a little bit about
Okay.
Vantage.
Okay. Yeah.
I think one of the unique things about Family Connection is the unique vantage point that we have, and that is the ability to see the big picture, work with our state partners, state agencies, and also have the ability to respond locally. So part of what we do is connect state tables of discussion of initiatives, funding, and we connect those conversations to communities where they are also trying to work on those same priorities. And then if their priorities, access issues, for example, in communities, the collaboratives will let us know so that we can communicate that to our state partners. So it's a liaison partnership, so that we can make sure that when state agencies have new initiatives, or if they want to know where they could make a strategic investment in a community who is already focused on that priority or has the synergy and energy and commitment to work on that particular topic, we can make sure that they are connected so that you can have the local work and the state priority work aligning. So that's a big piece of what we do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the committee? not seeing any. Representative Glaze did ask me, she had to get to a meeting, is why she left, but she said, could we get the list of the county representatives and contact information? Could the
Absolutely.
committee? Yeah, if you'll just send that to Amber, that would be great.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yeah, it's also on our website. You can look up by county, by name, by region, but we will surely pull that together and send it to Amber.
That would be great, helpful. You can just send it to Amber, just, or
Okay.
send us the link and we'll send it out to
Okay,
the
perfect.
committee. Thank you so much for
Thank
all that
you.
you're doing. Good to see y'all.
Good to see you too.
Thank you so much.
So we will start with the sign-up sheet now. And the first is from Allison Evans with Together Georgia, the Methodist home, I know. Allison, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming to see us from Macon. I think it is Macon Day at the Capitol. I don't know if you know, did you know that?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
And I was here yesterday, I'm back today, and I'll be back next week because this is important work that we do together.
It is. Thank you.
My name is Allison Evans, and I'm the CEO of the Methodist Home for Children and Youth, a child-serving organization that's been helping the children in Georgia for over 153 years. So literally centuries worth of service. But I'm also here representing Together Georgia. And so I speak today on behalf of all the provider agencies, large ones, small ones, rural, those in urban areas. And this is a story that I think that you guys know. You've heard it before. This is a repeat. But for those who might be new on the committee, back in 2007, the state debundled child welfare services and broke out the mental health component of what we do from what they call room board and watchful oversight. And that's the same if it's a foster home or a child caring institution. And so we took a reduction in rate at that time. Since 2007, which has been 18 years, your child care providers have received a total of 17.5% of rate increases. There was even one rate decrease in there. Now that's less than 1% a year. And we even less than that, Chairman Dempsey, if you last year had not given us, in your committee, fought for a 3% raise for us. So it would be even, in fact, I did the math, it would be less than 0.8% per year. Now I just want to ask any of you out there raising children, raising grandchildren, could you raise them only getting less than 1% raise in your salary every year? Would that cover the cost of what it takes to raise, and I have to say especially teenagers, who have voracious appetites, and my colleague John Mueller is going to talk a little bit about some of those costs. But, I want to remind the committee that back in 2016, DFACS did a rate study, and as of 2016, child welfare rates were 21% behind the rate of inflation at that time. Now, we are a mission and ministry-minded people, those of us who get together and help these children in foster care. And these agencies that I'm talking about through Together Georgia, we serve a good portion of the foster care kids across the state of Georgia. Now, everybody's been buzzing about insurance, and I don't know about my colleagues in the room, but for me, my insurance costs for the Methodist home, and we have 5 sites, so we're larger, and we are CPA and a CCI, which says the foster home and stuff like that. My insurance premiums are close to $300,000 a year. And that's been a 17% increase over the last 2 years, even as we have reduced coverage on our buildings. So we're reducing what they're going to have to cover and cost for us. And I can tell you the news there is not good, because that's what we paid before what we endured through Hurricane Helene, because we have a campus in Valdosta. My friends in the insurance business tell me that Georgia is going to go the way of Florida, where they're going to do wind coverage as a percentage of the premium, a percentage of the value of the building, which would be absolutely insurmountable for those of us in child welfare. As I said, we are a passionate people serving Georgia's children, but I can tell you it's getting harder. It's getting harder. Chairwoman Dempsey, I am preaching to the choir. You have been here every year I have spoken, and you have stood up with us and for us, and we are grateful for that. but we know you understand. Commissioner Broth has been empathetic. She's been supportive and engaged. She and Juanita Stedman have been working together on solutions. And we know and we recognize funds are limited, the needs are great, and the choices are hard. To cover that inflationary gap I talked about a few minutes ago would be $60 million. We know that's unrealistic. But I have to come and ask, request, implore, beg, could you do something? Please, on behalf of all of the agencies, could you find a way and see a way to do something for our child welfare agencies? And I said, John's going to step up here in a minute, but just to give you a conversation about a kid, this kid is the average kid. It's not the excelling kid, and it's not the worst, the one that's, cost me $12,000 in property damage in the last 3 months. This is the kid that probably flies under everybody's radar. She's quiet, but she's always watching. She's skeptical, but she's always learning. She's disengaged, aloof, and detached. Trust is her issue because she's been rejected too many times. And I suspect so many people have let her down. But we, as one of your child welfare providers, we are lifting her up. She's been with us for over a year. She's now stable. She's dual enrolled in both college and high school. She's got a job at the Dairy Queen, and she has saved $5,000 for her car. She was named Student of the Month at her high school. She has gone from surviving to thriving because we have been there holding her hand, and we can only do that because of the investment that you trust us with. Somebody has trusted us with the life of that child, and you are trusting us with the state taxpayer dollars. Please, please consider a continued investment in foster kids just like her. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you for the work you do every day. Are there any questions from the committee at all? Anyone?
Thank you.
Thank you. Persevere.
We will.
And next we have John Moeller with Together Georgia as well.
Oh, did she give us a number?
She just said something.
What?
Can
I'm
you
sorry.
ask her for a number? She didn't ask for a number.
Did Allison, do you, and maybe that's coming now because they are together with Together Georgia, do y'all have a number request at all that you're going to make, a specific?
We will get that to you very specifically. I would hope that 3 to 5% would be wonderful, but you can go as high as 20, we'd be happy with that.
I know you said 60 million, but somewhere between that and where, so just, yeah.
Anything would be great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, so Mr. Moeller.
Chairman Dempsey, members of the committee, thank you. My name is John Moeller, Reverend John Moeller. I'm a United Methodist pastor serving as the president and CEO of Inspiritus and a board member of Together Georgia. Inspiritus and our fellow child placing agencies appreciate the opportunity to partner with our great state in a public-private partnership that is foster care. Inspiritus is a child placing agency that also provides essential services all across Georgia to survivors of domestic natural disasters, works with host home services for adults with IDD and DD, serves refugees, and provides specialized foster care for medically fragile children. Devin was born on Christmas Day. And before we celebrate a Christmas baby, Devin was born in a motel room on Christmas Day. Thank goodness someone came to their senses and called 911. Devin spent 63 days at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the first 63 days of her life. Inspiritus was notified and contacted by Children's Healthcare, and we met Devin for the first time at the hospital. the doctor cautioned the foster family about taking this medically fragile child. But 14 years later, and dozens of surgeries later, Devin remains a total care child, requiring a feeding tube, a colostomy bag, and because she's non-ambulatory and so small, she gets around in a baby stroller. Regardless, this youngster is an active contributor to her family, her household, the local house of worship where they attend, and the wider community. Every child is unique. But Inspiritus serves dozens of medically fragile children statewide, including in Rome. In fact, we often support children from cradle to grave as they move from foster care, and if they have an IDD or DD diagnosis and are on the Medicaid waiver system, they seamlessly move into the DBH-DD host home program. But the real story here is the foster family who loves this child like their own. As long as there are families who are willing to love and care for our children, Georgia's children, I stand before you on their behalf to ask you, this legislature, our state, to stand with them and provide them the necessary rate increase to help them do this unbelievable job. Thank you for your time, and thank you for considering this rate increase.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Yes, we do. Let's see. Chairman Mathiat.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Can you give us just a ballpark number that you're looking for as far as
I believe that what we have put before you is a 20% increase. That would be as much as $60 million. That's a lot of money. And so I think, as Allison said, my colleague, anything that this body can do would be greatly appreciated.
Can I have a follow-up question? Thank you. For $60 million, give me an idea of where you would spend that money. Is this for the foster home itself or placement home?
So it's a rapidly rising cost environment. Allison mentioned insurance. There is only one insurance company in the state of Georgia right now who will write a policy for an organization that's providing foster care. And the increases are staggering for each child placing agency that does this work. So we have rising costs both on the insurance front. We have rising costs that families are incurring every day to feed and care and love, enroll children in empowerment programs, and to support them in their education. And particularly with respect to this work, the medically fragile portion of the work, it's just it's a really difficult thing to recruit these families, and so the rate that we can pass along to those families ensures that we get the right family doing it for the right reason.
Can I have one more? Thank you, Chair Lady. Okay, so if they're medically fragile, why are they not qualifying for Medicaid?
So our foster families are not paying for that medical care. They're Medicaid patients, and so that Medicaid does pay for their medical treatment.
Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify, the insurance you're talking about that's gone up are for your physical facilities or
for organization-wide,
and your staff and
exactly to cover the entire organization,
not for the foster child necessarily.
That's correct.
Right. Okay.
That's right.
Just wanted to be clear on that. Great. Representative Oliver.
I am guessing, but I really don't know, that your challenge is about paying what you have to pay to care for these children relates in some way to the $44 million gap that DFACS has in its care budget. Do you have an opinion about how that goes together? I'm really trying to figure out what are the elements that gave rise to a $44 million gap.
You know, I leaned in. I listened to Commissioner Brose's report that we saw on the screen earlier. I cannot speak at all to what was in that number, but I was paying attention to that figure, but I would defer to, our executive director and associate executive director at Together Georgia with respect to how the numbers work and fit together.
Madam Chair, it's really a puzzle. I mean, why don't we give the $44 million to them? I'm confused.
We'll continue to work on finding out answers for you, Representative Oliver. Do you have another question? Representative Oliver? Do you have another? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing kind of that scaling and estimates of what could specifically be targeted.
I think Donahue's got something.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Donahue. Let me get the right number here. Let's try and see if.
Could you give me a flyover? We're looking at foster kids throughout every realm, anything you can imagine, and it's something that we have made a lot of progress in the last 15 years, and I take it seriously. But what are we actually looking at under what we're talking about? Are we parents, no parents, parents that are in jail, drugs, single moms? What is the basically concept of me trying to visualize what you're bringing forward? I mean, I'm trying to see a picture here because we're throwing bombs every year, and I have been grateful to watch what we've done with foster care, and we still need to do more, but I'm just kind of spinning in a mud hole right now, and I'd like to see that picture a little better.
So we know that there are anywhere upwards of 10,000 children in foster care, and many of those children are base children and are in great care. Inspiritus specializes in medically fragile children. And so I don't want to try and cast an aspersion across the entire foster care system as to what takes a child into care. What I can tell you is that the children that we serve are oftentimes medically fragile because of their birth family and the connection to their birth family, or their care is exacerbated by their birth family, or the birth family is so flummoxed by the medically fragile nature of the diagnosis that they are absolutely outwitted by it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm trying to say we seem to throw money all the time. Where is that really fixing our problem? And when I ask that, I mean, a lot of times I see where it's families that are not really families, and that's where we start with our problems. And I have many of young people that have found adopted parents that their lives have changed. But then it seems like I deal from another side of watching so many that are in our prison systems, so many that are single moms. There's no father around to ever be responsible for anything. And I'm just to the point where I'm wanting to bring the fathers in to be responsible if we have to hurt them up. And I hate to say that because I hate to even call them fathers. But I'm asked continuously by people that have adopted 2 and 3 children. We need to fix the problem. And there are people that stepped up to say, I have 3 in my family, now I have 6. So I appreciate the constituents and friends that have done that, but I would really like to see us, instead of every year coming in, just looking at more and more and more, how do we fix the problem, I guess would be what I'd like to ask.
As a leader in the faith community and as a pastor, I think that is the job of every community and every house of worship and every school. I think we're trying to work together to ensure that children don't fall through the cracks and end up in the care of Inspiritus. But if they do, we're glad to be there.
And I appreciate that, I really do, because they're the ones that haven't really made the mistakes, and we want to make sure that we take care of them.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I realize that you're taking medically fragile children, so the expense is way different. I understand that. Can you give me a ballpark on a daily, monthly, what does it cost?
Sure.
For
the rate structure varies significantly depending on the diagnosis. And so I'm sure that Claire can send you the rate structure. Commissioner Brose also has that rate structure that delineates very clearly what the rate should be for each child with each respective diagnosis.
Okay, and can I ask one? I'm going to assume that your families have some specific and special training to take care of a medically fragile child. I can't imagine I'm not equipped. Somebody would have to teach me. So I'm assuming that that's what you do, correct?
That is exactly what we do. We have a nurse on our staff who works across the entire state, traveling, crisscrossing, not caring for the children, but to actually make sure that the families have the tools, know how to use the tools, know how to sanitize the tools, make sure that all the equipment that pharmaceuticals are administered appropriately. I mean, it is incredibly complex work. And these are children that would otherwise be in a hospitalized situation.
Right. Thank you for the good work you're doing. I appreciate it very much.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? Not seeing any. Thank you so much, Reverend Moeller, for the work you do every day. Next, we have Stan Jones. Thank you. And Evan Pearson with Hillside Atlanta.
Good afternoon. My name is Evan Pearson, and I serve as the head of external affairs at Hillside. Hillside, located in Atlanta, is one of 6 psychiatric residential treatment facilities in Georgia. We specialize in providing intensive mental health treatment for children and youth ages 11 to 21. The need for our services is critical. 60% of our clients have attempted suicide. The majority engage in self-harm, and 88% have been hospitalized an average of 5 times before they hit Hillside. 60% of the children we serve rely on Medicaid. The majority of these children, while remaining in custody of their grandparents or parents, often are faced with families with significant challenges: mental health, addiction, housing instability, food insecurity, school truancy, and limited access to health care. Effective discharge planning is crucial for these clients, ensuring long-term stability and preventing repeated hospitalization, legal issues, and even tragic outcomes. Our families require a coordinated, individualized approach to assessing their needs, coordinating care, and ensuring a smooth transition from residential treatment to the necessary community-based support. To better serve our children and their families, I'm here requesting the committee consider $250,000 for us to fund 3 specialized discharge planning coordinators. These coordinators are there to make sure that the children, when they go back to their families, have the resources and the means to continue care to prevent the cycle. By investing in these critical roles, we can help break the crisis, ensuring the children leaving Hillside receive support they need and thrive in their communities. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the consideration, and we'll answer questions if there are any.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments? if not, I'd like to say we visited. And this is so important. Think about it when you are even an adult. If you've been with someone recently who's been in a hospital, that just a regular medical issue. When you leave, understanding fully what the next steps are in your life, the medication, how you take it, when you do it, when you need to be back, are so important. But in some of these cases, particularly too, housing, all the supports when the next appointment is, which should be pretty quick usually, I would think, to make sure to keep that fragile young person on track, are so important. So they are operating right now, as I understand it, with one discharge coordinator, which means that many of the patients who leave there get little to no instruction. That is so important. So I want to thank you for coming and sharing. And if the committee does have any questions, we can help you get in contact to make sure you understand this request. So thank you so much for coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all very much.
They, particularly Hillside is in Atlanta, isn't that right? You are, yeah, that's right. Is it in your district, Representative Muller? And Stacey, okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. So, I think the next name is Lisa Matisovac, and you can clean that up for me when you get up here, please. Thank you. Please come. And it looks like you have some friends with you, so y'all can each introduce yourself and tell us about the concerns you have.
You did an admirable job trying to say my name. It's not an easy one, so thank you. So everyone, my name is Lisa Matisovac, and I am the mother to a young adult with Prader-Willi syndrome, or PWS. I am also the president of the Georgia Association for Prader-Willi Syndrome and a researcher for the Foundation for Prader-Willi Research. These roles have provided me with an in-depth understanding of the devastating and life-threatening challenges posed by the condition, particularly the relentless food-seeking behaviors that define it. Every moment of a person's life with PWS revolves around food security and the need to prevent catastrophic outcomes. PWS is a rare and complex genetic disorder that profoundly impacts those who live with it and their families. Its hallmark feature is something called hyperphagia, an unrelenting and life-threatening drive to eat. This biological compulsion is driven by a malfunction in the hypothalamus, the part of the brain that regulates hunger and satiety, resulting in individuals feeling as though they are starving no matter how much they've eaten. Without strict supervision, the insatiable hunger can and often leads to severe medical emergencies such as choking, gastric rupture, and death. For individuals with PWS, food, a basic human necessity, becomes the greatest threat to their lives. So I'm grateful today for the opportunity to share with you our son's experience living with PWS and our struggle to receive services in Georgia. Upon diagnosis, a bleak outlook was painted as we were told his future food behaviors would place him in grave danger and he would have many limitations. Every moment of every day is planned to ensure food safety and security. His only focus is the gut-wrenching hunger and devising plans to access food at any cost. This behavior is a biological drive written into his genetic code. There is no amount of logic, redirecting, training, or educating that will change his feeling of hunger and his desire to seek and consume food. The current requirement for an IQ score below 70 to qualify for services in Georgia does not reflect the true safety needs of individuals with PWS. Many individuals with this condition, including my son, have IQ scores above this threshold, in thanks due to early diagnosis, growth hormone treatment, and early intervention strategies. However, the intellectual abilities do not mitigate the dangers posed by hyperphagia or the challenges of living in a world where food is ubiquitous. My son, for example, will graduate from high school this year with a general education diploma, yet he cannot be left unsupervised around food due to the life-threatening risks it presents. Additionally, he has severe food allergies, and consuming an allergen despite knowing the consequences can result in anaphylaxis or worse. So this is not a matter of willpower or understanding. It is a physiological drive that places his life in constant jeopardy. In 2017, our family faced the daunting process of reapplying for Katie Beckett waiver after it was denied for him having fewer than 5 therapies outside of school. He did not meet the criteria for qualifying based on IQ scores. The process was arduous and costly, requiring legal intervention and additional psychological assessments to demonstrate his poor independent living skills. This experience highlights how the system's reliance on IQ as a primary determinant for eligibility disregards the unique needs of individuals with PWS and their families. The benefit of living in a developed country where food is readily available becomes a source of danger for a person with PWS. Imagine sending an adult with PWS into the world without the necessary supports and services to ensure their safety. Break rooms at work, takeout services, or even garbage cans become sources of life-threatening risk. Without appropriate waivers, these individuals are left vulnerable, unable to live independently, and at risk for severe mental health challenges stemming from unfulfilled goals and isolation. As a community, we are not asking for special privileges or to cut to the front of the line. We are simply asking for PWS to be recognized for what it is, a condition that necessitates unique safety considerations beyond IQ alone. We seek guaranteed access to the Katie Beckett waiver and the now comp waiver for individuals with PWS based on their diagnosis. These supports are essential to ensure a life of dignity, safety, and opportunity for individuals like my son. So I urge this committee to consider the unique needs of individuals with PWS when evaluating eligibility criteria for these critical services. By recognizing the realities of PWS, you can help ensure that individuals with this condition have the support necessary to lead fulfilling lives while minimizing the risks posed by this genetic disorder. I thank you for your time, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Chairman Mathiak.
I know. I'll stop, I promise. Thank you, Chair Lady. Thank you, ladies, for coming and visiting with us. I hope you got to see most of the committee. You are amazing. You are amazing. I want to do as much as I can for you, because one of the things that really took me back, and at least I think it was you that talked about you're a prisoner in your own home because it's so even difficult to go to a family function. And that took me back, because that's where I expected your biggest support group was with your family, and sometimes our families just don't understand. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for teaching me about the hypothalamus, because I would have said pituitary. And just the IQ component, and the importance of what we can do to help.
Thank you very much.
You.
These are some of my other fellow moms.
Question or comment, maybe perhaps Representative Oliver.
Apologies. Thank you.
Forgive me, I'm confused because I'm thinking about the eligibility criteria for Social Security dependents. Your son is going to be eligible as a Social Security disability at a certain age. And Medicaid is this a federal rule 70 IQ, or is it a state rule 70 IQ? I'm going back and forth in my mind about what determines eligibility.
It's my understanding that Georgia follows the federal guidelines, and currently the federal guidelines indicate that an IQ score of 70 would be a cutoff factor for qualification for services and supports. But what we understand and what we live with every day with Prader-Willi syndrome is that it does not matter what an individual who lives with Prader-Willi syndrome has for an IQ. Their ability to keep themselves safe is impossible.
I understand your argument. I'm just trying to figure out if the argument is a federal argument with the federal regs and not a state argument. But I'll find that out. That's what my mind was going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. Let us know what you find out to share it with the committee. Please. Okay. Next, and it's just my eyes. Ms. Wilson, are you? Yeah. Y'all just feel free to step up and introduce yourself and tell us your
Hi, I'm
story.
Deal Wilson.
Deal.
Thank you all for giving us time today to speak. My son Matthew is 15 years old. He has Prader-Willi syndrome. commonly referred to as PWS. As a parent, it has been an ongoing journey to manage his condition, and today I stand before you to advocate for changes that will directly impact families like ours. As you have already heard from my fellow PWS mom, Lisa, PWS is very complex and life-threatening genetic disorder. It is also a spectrum disorder, meaning that individuals with PWS can have a wide range of abilities and challenges. IQs among the individuals with PWS vary significantly. And while early interventions can lead to higher intellectual outcomes, these outcomes often come with an increased risk. The higher the individual's IQ, the more likely they are to devise ways to access food, bypass safety measures, engage in behaviors that can lead to catastrophic food-related medical events. For individuals with PWS, intelligence can tragically become a double-edged sword. Their cognitive abilities make it easier for them to circumvent safeguards, placing them at even greater risk of harm or death. When Matthew was just 5 years old, he was benefiting from therapies multiple times a week. This included physical, occupational, aqua, speech therapies, all of which were essential to his development. The early interventions, such as growth hormone therapy, have also played a critical role in improving his quality of life. However, when we applied for our yearly renewal with the deeming waiver, we were denied due to the technicality that Matthew's IQ was 72, which is just above the obituary cutoff of 70. Despite a long and exhausting fight, we lost access to the critical care because of this rigid and outdated criterion. This loss not only deprived Matthew of essential therapies, but also placed him at an immense financial burden on our family. This experience is not unique to my family. Many families like ours face struggles to navigate a system that fails to recognize the unique challenges posed by PWS. Access to care is not just about providing therapies. It is about giving families the tools they need to create a safe and supportive environment for their children. Medicaid acts as a crucial safety net, allowing families to focus on helping their children thrive rather than constantly worrying about the financial strain or losing access to the necessary care. While Prader-Willi syndrome may be rare, the challenges it presents are very profound. By advocating for changes to eligibility criteria and ensuring continued Medicaid funding, we can provide families like mine with the support they need to address the complex realities of PWS. With the right resources, children with PWS can lead lives filled with dignity and potential rather than being limited by the systematic barriers. So let us ensure that no family falls through the cracks. I just want to thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Thank you. Yes, and next, I think maybe Jamie, tell us your last name.
Hi, my name is Jamie Prentice.
Prentice, okay, great.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm the single mother of two sons, Logan, 32, who has Prader-Willi syndrome, and Christian, 28. The diagnosis of PWS is frankly devastating. It's a lifelong, relentless challenge. As we have seen happen to many of my son's friends through the years, 10 minutes alone with unrestricted food access can literally kill him. It's crushing and instills an ever-present fear every single day. This is our reality. PWS genetically drives Logan to seek and obtain food, and despite an understanding of the threat that it poses to his life, if given any opportunity, he will attempt to eat anything and everything he can get his hands on. He has been urgently transported to the hospital and had multiple ongoing hospital stays as a result. His IQ and IQ of others with this syndrome do not mitigate these drives and can potentially present more opportunity for food access. We are here today because the diagnosis of PWS is recognized currently in only 14 states in this country as an automatic qualifier for a disability. The state of Georgia is not one of them. This fact presents extreme undue stress on families, lack of access to imperative services, and associated funding that our children desperately need. 2 states are currently in legislative process, and 10 states, including Georgia, are mobilizing for change. The Georgia state designating factor of an IQ below 70 poses significant barriers for our loved ones qualifying for disability services. For our population, it is not an appropriate diagnostic indicator of disability. When Logan was younger, his behaviors became ever-present and increasingly dangerous. Once, while I was in the shower, he took a butcher knife and hacked through a locked wooden pantry door to obtain food. Another time, what would have been for most a minor upset at school escalated into a full-scale crisis, leading into a school lockdown of 1,000 students and police intervention. These serious occurrences were happening in our home, in our community, in our car, in school, and were happening several times a week for years. Logan's unrelenting drive for food, inability to self-regulate, and violent outbursts made it impossible for me to keep him, his brother, and myself safe. After scouring what at that time was the state of South Carolina for support and options for placement, at the age of 17, I had to make the decision to send my son to live in a state institution. A heartbreaking decision that I made to keep us all literally alive. Logan himself told me, "Mom, you're doing everything you can, and it's just not enough to keep me safe." Today, my son lives in a group home in South Carolina, but the challenges persist. We have found ourselves facing felony legal charges against him after an incident in a van with several housemates where he was denied access to a bathroom for an extended period of time, resulting in him acting out. My ex-husband, Logan's father, and I have spent thousands of dollars on legal fees and relied on the national organization, PWSA USA, to intervene with the district attorney there to avoid his arrest. I moved here to Georgia to be close to family and for opportunities for work, but Logan's waiver is funded through the state of South Carolina. It is not portable here to the state of Georgia. If I moved him here, he would lose his current services and face a wait list of over 7,000 people waiting for waiver services in the state of Georgia. This is an unacceptable reality for families like mine. Logan cannot be left alone. As I said, he is 32 years old. I'm a single parent. I have to work. For the past 10 years, I've driven 6 hours each way to visit my son and bring him home for holidays and happenings to try to form a semblance of a life. The group of people that you see before you today are representatives of a much larger group of parents and advocates who are dedicated to seeing that all states across this country recognize the difficult diagnosis of PWS to immediately automatically access state waiver services for our affected family members. The current system referencing adaptive functioning and IQ of 70 being linked to waiver services in the state of Georgia is antiquated, it is inappropriate, and it is potentially catastrophic to our loved ones. While we engage in state-level legislation, we are actively lobbying ongoing in DC and a national level. Desperation is a powerful driver. We appreciate this opportunity to be here. We ask that you consider acting now as we move forward to ensure that families like mine and like the ladies here before you have access to the much-needed resources that we need to keep our loved ones safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the committee? I'm not seeing any, but I want to thank y'all. This is such great information. It truly is. Thank you for sharing your personal pictures and testimonies about your own families and others. We wouldn't have known. We just wouldn't have known. So I really appreciate you have championed a very good cause, and I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all.
Really are champions.
So next we have Rebecca Richard with the Pace Center for Girls.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and committee members. My name is Rebecca Richard. I am a licensed clinical social worker and program director for the PACE Center for Girls in Macon. Also, happy Macon Day. I hope after this committee meeting you'll head over to the Freight Depot for some Jim Shaw's and some New Way hot dogs. PACE Center for Girls provides free mental health services to girls ages 11 through 17 in Central Georgia. We make it our mission to pave a pathway for all girls to achieve their goals and eliminate barriers that stand in their way. PACE therapists offer social, emotional, behavioral health, and case management services. Each week, PACE clinicians provide individual, group, and family support therapy, as well as goal setting, substance abuse prevention, and intervention at schools, homes, and in our office. Our work is centered around the individual needs of each girl. In a nutshell, we empower to strengthen relationships, develop healthy communication skills, improve emotional well-being, build adaptive and positive coping skills, and increase positive peer interactions. We serve 125 girls each year with individual and group therapy. Some of the risk factors that our girls come into PACE with include, I have some stats. 67% of our girls have behavioral risks. That's either being antisocial, juvenile justice involvement, or aggressive behavior. 60% report either being truant, suspended, or expelled from school. 53% report a physical or mental health risk. And 77% of our girls report family instability, be that homelessness, eviction, conflict, or a lack of supervision. Now, post-PACE, we do pre-assessments and post-assessments after we serve girls. 94% of our girls report an improvement in their relationships with parents, peers, or teachers after PACE. And 80% of our girls improve their own self-efficacy, so how they can handle a problem on their own. So the funding, we're requesting an additional amount of funding to allow us to serve more girls at our respective schools, work through our waiting list, and expand into the remaining 4 schools, middle and high, in Macon-Bibb County. I'm happy to thank y'all for having me, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have a specific amount to share?
Yes, it's on your list. An added 300,000, that would take us to 950.
And how many more girls can you?
Most of our girls, so our therapists see about 30 girls a year, so 15 to 17 every 6 months. So rounding about 30 years. So that will fund, I would say, 60. I would say maybe another 100 girls. What we're finding is that the average amount of time that our therapists spend with a PACE girl is around 9 months. What we are noticing, however, is that so many of our girls need our services, or we're finding that our girls need services a lot longer. And so as a result, our numbers, they don't increase, our care load numbers stay the same, but we're keeping girls longer. So we're finding that there's a lot of trauma that we have to unpack and work through.
Let's do this. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Anyone? Do you want to ask? Do you want me to? Yes, Chairman Mathiat.
Okay, thank you, Chair Lady. So the program is approximately 9 months, and then now what we're finding is a little more follow-up care with the girls. Is that what you're saying?
So
correct?
we see girls as long as they need. And so that, the average age, so sometimes we'll see girls for 6 months, sometimes we'll see girls for up to 3 years, depending on what they need.
So it's an individual basis.
Yes,
Thank you.
everything that we do is centered around the needs of each girl.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? Well, you've proven yourself to be doing some really good work with what you have been extended from the state, and I thank you for that. It's pretty powerful. I'm sorry I missed the first paragraph as I was glancing through this, so I do see the amount, but I also see that this would allow you to serve all middle and high school girls in the Bibb County School District. That's pretty big, steep work, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Tyler Mann and Kamala Miller with the DeKalb District Attorney's Office.
Good afternoon, committee members. I am Tyler Mann, Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs in the DeKalb District Attorney's Office. With me is Camila Miller, who is our Director of the UIFSA division of our office. We're here to ask you for additional funds for our fiscal year 26 UIFSA operations, which is funded through DHS. UIFSA, if you remember from our amended budget request for FY25 a few weeks ago, stands for Uniform Interstate Family Support Act. It's the federal mechanism by which child support is established, enforced, and collected when the parents live in different states or countries. DeKalb is one of 3 counties in the state that has its own standalone UIFSA operations. We service approximately 6,000 kids, and we collected approximately $9 million in FY24, which is our last number. We were here a few weeks ago asking you for an amended budget of approximately $190,000, and we're very grateful that that number made it into the amended House budget for FY25. We'd like to avoid having to come back in the amended process this year. I believe the baseline request in the DHS proposal to you for our services is $664,579. That's based on the COVID era funding for our operations. Our ask for this year is an additional funding amount of $275,956.24. It's important to note that our funding is split 34%, 66% with the federal government. The amount we're asking for from the state would be double matched by the feds approximately. They would give us $535,679. So the ask that we are requesting is 34% of what we need. As I said, the baseline amount that is in the current DHS proposal is based on the FY21 budget, which was about $1.95 million. That number was a 14% COVID cut from our FY20 budget 5 years ago, 6 years ago relative to FY26. That budget was $2.1 million. It was cut as part of COVID and was never restored. And so every year since then, we have been, each year we've had to find some way to supplement our budget to maintain operations. As you know, costs have rapidly increased. Healthcare costs, especially for our personnel, rent has increased, and costs associated with turnover associated with the fact that we cannot pay a competitive salary to our personnel. The way that we've survived is that we have not replaced personnel who have left our office. We're very underfunded, we're understaffed, and the current number in the proposal before you from DHS would have us back here in the amended budget process, just as we were this year, explaining that we are weeks away from completely running out of money and having to shut down operations. I want to be clear, as I was a few weeks ago, that this is not a DeKalb County program. This is a state program. It comes from a state obligation, from a federal state contract to provide these services. The state's obligated under the Child Support Performance and Incentive Act of 1998 to provide these services. Failing to do so will result in a penalty period, in a reduction in funding, and ultimately an obligation of the state to repay federal funds. Our proper staffing level is 23 people. The request that we came to you with a few weeks ago allowed us to maintain our current level of 19 people. Frankly, I cannot point you to the document that calculates the number of 23, but I do know that that number has always been set by the state. It's our historical number, and it's what we've had up until recently, where as we've had natural turnover, we haven't replaced those people. That's why we're at 19. We would like to get back to our full our full staffing of 23 so that we can properly manage our caseload. Without that extra money, we either get rid of people or we close operations, leaving the state in violation of its federal contract. An important thing to note about UIFSA is that these caseworkers are not fungible. They cannot just be replaced by an untrained and unqualified non-UIFSA case manager. Many of them have been doing this work for a decade or longer. UIFSA requires expertise because of the complications of handling the laws and regulations of multiple states and often multiple countries. The alternative, if we fold, is that the state take over the services, and DHS is not equipped for that. Again, not providing these services is not an option under the state-federal contract. We're facing a real turnover crisis if we do not meet our full funding level, and those people will not be easy to replace. As I said a few weeks ago, you have not seen us before this year, and that's because DHS typically has handled all of this funding on our behalf and the requests on our behalf. That was prior to FY24. In the last 2 years, DHS has not requested our this year, DHS did not request our FY26 budget number. We have not yet provided that number to DHS because it has not been requested. They have simply provided to you the FY21 number. In the middle of the fiscal year, they've asked us to submit our budget number and have insisted that that number be at the reduced FY20 number. And they have allowed us to attach our actual budget number as an additional document. They have then treated that request as a supplemental request. That's why we were here before you a few weeks ago asking for additional money. We were not over budget. We have never been over budget. We were right at the number we anticipated. It was just framed as a supplemental request. That is an extremely inefficient way for our office to do business. It introduces a lot of doubt about the resilience of our operations. It requires us to start planning mid-year for an inability to perform the state's obligations under their federal contract. Because we are operating on behalf of the state in furtherance of a state contract, our inefficiency is the state's inefficiency. We would like to avoid all of that and get this full funding amount into the state budget this time so that we can avoid this process going forward. If you have any questions, that's all I have. Ms. Miller is the UIFSA subject matter expert, but if you have any questions for either one of us, we'd be happy to answer those.
Well, thank you for the update, and thank you for the information that you're providing us with. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? You got one? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, I know you've walked us through that this is a state obligation, but could you highlight for the committee, and you're one of three, correct, that don't do it through the statewide process. What are the other two? What's the reason y'all would need this additional funding, those two offices wouldn't? And what is the, I'm assuming higher efficiency, which is why you chose to do it yourselves, but what is the dollar value for investing in this system versus the statewide system?
I'll do my best, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Miller if needed. The other two counties that have their own standalone operation are Clayton and Cobb. Fulton used to have its own operation, and the state took it over in the last few years. Ms. Miller can give you the exact year. There are a couple differences. The first is simply caseload. We have a lot of cases, as do Clayton and Cobb. We have extremely qualified, experienced people who have more experience with UIFSA than anyone else in the state. We often train workers in other counties. We often handle or consult on cases for other counties. Those other two counties also have a funding issue. There are two differences. I believe that the Cobb DA's office, Cobb has a new DA, and she came in late in the process, and that's why we're a little bit ahead of the curve. Clayton expected that PAC, because Clayton, it's the DA's office doing this work, Clayton, my understanding, thought that PAC managed this process. PAC does not. And so they also just kind of missed the curve on the request. I know that they both also have funding crises. I don't know the details. We communicate with them generally about how we're underfunded, but I know that they share this issue. Does that answer your question?
Partially it does answer that. Likely what we're investing here is also in parity with what's needed with these other two counties adjusted for caseload. It is a very generic way to look at it, I guess. But in terms of just on an uneducated level, why, maybe two ways to ask the question, so I'll let you decide which one you want to answer. why did we take over Fulton and decide it was a necessity for the state to do it, and versus the county, this county model that the minority of counties use, but relatively a large population of Georgia is using for this model?
So I can account for that. I actually was in the Fulton County DA's office when they had the child support I was actually in the Fulton County DA's office when they had the child support contract. I actually started my career there as an attorney working with the SAG, who was initially assigned to that office, but they also had SAGs and they had ADAs. The contract with Fulton was a little bit different. There were only 3 ADAs assigned to that office. DeKalb, Clayton, and Cobb have entire offices contracted to do that work. So where we were 3 attorneys from the DA's office sitting in the Fulton, in the state office really, with state child support workers, DeKalb, Clayton, and Cobb, UIFSA, we have entire staff ourselves, and that's all we deal with. So I think the level of competency in dealing with the cases is a little bit different. We have staff that works for us rather than me as an ADA trying to tell a case manager that works for the state kind of what to do. That dynamic is very difficult in some of those offices. And so in our office, we work really well together. We collaborate with everything. Some of my staff members have been there for over 20 years, and I'd like to keep them where they are. They are great workers. I've been doing this work since 2000. I will say I started in Fulton in 2004. I was with that office, I started in 2007. I think I left there in 2011 and came to DeKalb. I was there in that office for about 2 years doing that child support work. I got pulled to do crimes against women and children. During that time I got pulled. The DA in Fulton, Mr. Howard, lost that contract. I think there was some issues with, I think, where the attorneys did not have offices and we had to see people, from what I understand. There were just a lot of kind of butting heads in that office, and I think in the end he said it wasn't worth, or the state felt it wasn't worth to have just the 3 attorneys there, and decided to bring all SAGs in. So it was a little bit easier to do that in that instance. But to take a full office of case managers who've been doing interstate work, who know the complexities of the orders, who understand continuing exclusive jurisdiction, we rely a lot, our attorneys rely a lot on our case managers. They're more like very experienced paralegals. They know those cases like the back of their hand. They help the customers very well. They know their customers very well. They're able to get people in to pay child support. We had a man who came in complaining about a lien. We had taken $50,000 of his on a workers' comp lien, and he, complained. And in the end, he said, "You know what? I'm going to let her have it. I'm going to let the custodial parent have it, because you're a caseworker here, talked me through it and made me understand how important this money was." And so we have those kind of case managers in our office who do this work, who love this work, who understand this work, who can pull an order and say, "Hey, I know who's supposed to have jurisdiction. I know this case is missing an order. I've read through this order. I know we're missing this amount. We're missing this amount. This child should have been added to this order." They know those nuances of those cases.
Okay, a quick follow-up. And I appreciate the answer, and I think we're talking about the same thing. But as I understand it, the people who are impacted by this, if this system doesn't work well, are mothers or fathers in the state of Georgia that have a custodial parent of their minor outside the state of Georgia, their ability to collect and receive that minor's allocation from that parent, correct?
Yes.
So in terms of efficiency, can you tell, trying to get a solid number, how efficient is DeKalb in collecting right now versus the state? I'm just trying to get a baseline on investing in this program and investing appropriately.
So I will tell you, our caseload is different in that we have 2 sides of the house. So we have cases where we have moms, or custodial parents, I should say, because not everybody's a mom, but custodial parents that live in the state of Georgia, and we're sending those petitions out to other states to establish, enforce, and modify child support orders. On the other hand, we're getting petitions in against non-custodial parents who live in DeKalb County, and we're enforcing, establishing, and modifying child support cases here in DeKalb County with those petitions we're getting from other states. So we might register an order from another state or from another country. They might ask us to establish paternity and establish an order. So we're doing sort of both sides of the house. A large part of what we do relies on the efficiency of other states as well. So I can't really give you a number to say, like, we have collected, more than, say, the local DeKalb office who has both parents living here in the state of Georgia, because I'm having to request dollar amounts from another state or request enforcement from another state. Now, if we were to go ahead and say, or if the state were to say, we'll take this caseload back, it would probably create about a 3-year backlog. The reason I know that is because I am in constant communication with the Fulton SAGs who are trying to do the UIFSA work in their office. They probably have 1 or 2 case managers that are specified for this work. They have a backlog of cases that were registered maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They realized they were using wrong forms. They're trying to figure out how to navigate this. They don't have what we have here in DeKalb. So there is a bit of a difference in what we do. So the collection rate is going to be different based on we have to rely on other states.
And I'll stop there and thank you. I just maybe a recommendation for future, because I don't want to create a problem where I don't think there is one there. It's very clear. Your office has done a great job in being vigilant about this program. It's frankly why you're here in representation of possibly 2 other needs. But it would be great for us, at least how I'm thinking of this, for there to be some solid baseline of, hey, this is the state of Georgia average on the efficiency of how quickly we process, the ends of this case versus ours. I don't know how easy that is to determine. I know there's a lot of variation, but I have a feeling y'all are likely very efficient, and I appreciate what you do for parents in the state of Georgia every day, because at the end of the day, that's what a child needs to succeed. So thank you, but just maybe a soft recommendation for the future. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Not seeing any. Thank you, and I thank y'all again for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you so much.
Next is Becky Davenport with Bloom Our Youth.
If you want to pay a lot of child support, make sure to hire her. I'm sure she's the reason they collect a lot of that.
Chairwoman Dempsey and the committee, thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. My name is Becky Davenport, and I'm the president and CEO of Bloom. Bloom is a nationally accredited, A+ rated nonprofit organization that has served Georgia's foster children for almost 35 years. We are a licensed foster care agency, and we go the utmost mile to provide the critical trainings and support for our foster families so that children in their care will flourish and bloom. One thing you should know about us is that we are an organization that thinks outside the box. One of our most impactful programs is the Bloom Closet, and today, I'm just going to get it out on the table. I am here to request $550,000 in state funding to ensure that we can continue to meet the growing needs of Georgia's foster care population. The Bloom Closet is much more than just a free clothing resource for children. It is a lifeline for children who have entered foster care, often with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The Bloom Closet has 2 physical locations, one in Fayetteville and one in Rome. The store is decorated like a fun upscale boutique where we provide a week's worth of free high-quality clothing, shoes, school supplies, toiletries, diapers, toys, and daily essentials to foster children and youth of all ages. And children are allowed to visit the closet on a quarterly basis. In our mobile version of the Bloom Closet, the Bloom Closet Express, our staff travels all across the state to deliver clothing and supplies to areas that aren't accessible to our physical store. The Express travels to DFACS offices and group homes from the mountains to the Georgia coast. This past year, we launched a pilot program called Bloom Direct, where we ship emergency boxes of clothing and essentials to Region 9, DFACS Region 9 foster children within 48 hours of placement. State DFACS leaders assigned us to Region 9 in South Georgia because it is an area of our state with few resources for our foster care families and children. What makes the Bloom Closet special is our unique ability to leverage private sector partnerships to stretch every dollar far beyond its face value. Companies like Chick-fil-A, Bomba Socks, Mattress Firm, Georgia Power, Carter's Children's Wear, TJ Maxx, many more have joined us in this mission, allowing us to multiply the impact of every dollar spent. The need for this program is undeniable. Over the past 15 years, the Bloom Closet has distributed more than $13 million in free clothing and essentials to Georgia's foster children. In 2024 alone, we served children from 142 Georgia counties, providing more than $2.2 million in necessities. The Bloom Closet has an average annual growth rate of 30% every year as far as numbers of children served, an indication of both the need and the trust that families place in us. In 2022, as I'm sure y'all are aware, the state increased the DFACS clothing allowance to $650 per year, which has been such an important first step. However, if you look at inflation, the rising cost of housing, food, energy, and transportation, combined with a 15% increase in clothing prices just over the last 2 years, all these conditions have made it harder than ever for our foster parents to provide for children in their care. Oftentimes, families will pay out of pocket and have to wait months for reimbursement from the state. The Bloom Closet eliminates this hardship, allowing foster parents to get children the essentials they need immediately so that they can focus on their child's emotional well-being, education, and successful adjustment into the home. In conclusion, for the past 15 years, Bloom has funded operations of the Bloom Closet through the private sector with no government support. In recent years, we face our own set of challenges with rising costs from everything from transportation to payroll to the cost of clothing. Most importantly, we think we have built a very ingenious program model, and our vision is to make that model available to every child in foster care in the state of Georgia. So I come to you today with an innovative solution that leverages the private sector to stretch state dollars, provides a hedge against inflation, and makes the state clothing allowance doable for foster parents across the state. Today, I ask you for your support in funding the Bloom Closet at $60 per visit per child. And that's 9,000 visits over the year, in the upcoming year, totaling $550,000. That means for every $60 we receive in state funding, we provide children $300 worth of clothing and supplies, a 400% return on the state's investment. But the greater rate of return for your investment, though, is in Georgia's foster children. You are strengthening families, supporting placements, and ensuring that every child who enters foster care has the essentials they need to begin their life again with hope and dignity. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your commitment to Georgia's foster children, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, and thank you for hanging in here with us this afternoon. We always have long hearings, and I'm sorry, but each and every issue matters. There's one more after you that, the last one is always very, very important without a doubt. But I want to ask you this. So the I want to say something more than that because I'm not seeing any questions or comments right now. I want to encourage y'all to look at this material here. It's excellent, Becky, first of all. But to really see what the Bloom Closet she's speaking of looks like. So it's fairly new in Rome, but the great opportunity that it has to allow those families who we always talk about how we can never do enough for, to help them sign up and to help them take a child into their home. Just how lovely it is, how exciting. It's not at all like walking into a place of used clothing. These are gently loved and often new items that really make a difference where we struggle to give a clothing allowance all the time. So I want to thank you for the creative work that has gone into this. I know the Bloom van that you spoke of too, or bus, which one?
The Express.
The
Bloom
Express.
Closet Express.
So, just such a great way to reach out and to help us in the challenges that we face of providing encouragement and certainly benefits to those who are standing in the gap and being foster parents. So thank you, first of all. I think I feel that there may be a comment or a question over my shoulder.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's the first step towards healing, is the restoration of the child's dignity, and that's what we work hard to do. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Representative Chairman Mathiak.
You're going to let me go. Thank you. Thank you so much. I got to go and look at the closet last Friday, and Becky blew me right out of the water. I was so excited. The van is the cool thing. After the storms, they loaded up that van and went to South Georgia and took care of people at the drop of a hat. So it's not just about Rome and just about the South Side. They truly take care of the whole state. So, Becky, thanks for spending the time with me, and wow, what a vision. And yes, you're right, this is a great map for others to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you again. Yesterday it was very pushed. You came in. Of course, Chairman Bonner spent a little time kind of spreading the word of what you stood for. I sent the picture of the closet to my wife. She would like to start shopping there. And she was really impressed. It brings dignity to these people, these young people, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't see any other comments. Thank you so much. Definitely not least, Wayne Noggle with Families for Families. Thank you for the great information you've left with us, too. I think so. Does everybody have?
Did you get one? This one's powerful, too.
Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening now, maybe. So, thank you guys for letting me share for just a few minutes. I've got to meet most of you in your offices over the last week or so, and so spend some time with you. So I appreciate it. Let me share. My wife and I, as you guys heard, we fostered and adopted out of Fulton County. We got a baby. A year later, got another baby. A year later, we adopted both those little girls, born and raised in Gwinnett County. And we learned very quickly that this foster care world was a really big world in Georgia that most people knew very little about. In 2017, we started a nonprofit called Families for Families. I was born and raised in Gwinnett County, and so we started in Gwinnett County with an office in Loganville, and we learned very quickly that DFATS was short placements, but not just short placements, but short placement where the kids are. And so what's happened in Georgia with our model is that kids are brought to Atlanta and to Metro Atlanta from all over the state of Georgia, sometimes placed 100 or more miles from their birth families. And so we were getting phone calls from all over the state. And so as we began to grow and think about our agency and our business plan, we knew the best business plan would be for us to just grow in Gwinnett County and not open other offices, but we knew that was not the best outcomes for children. So we began to plant offices in rural parts of Georgia. Today we have 8 offices in Georgia. Our plan is to open 2 more, one in southeast Georgia, one in southwest Georgia. And just to show you a little bit about the need, if you look on page 6 in that book I gave you right there, there are 53 child placing agencies like ours in the state of Georgia that hold 105 contracts. Of those 105 contracts, 33 of those are in Fulton, DeKalb, and Gwinnett counties. The other 156 counties share the other 72 contracts. And so there's a lot of services right in Metro Atlanta, but the kids are in rural parts of Georgia. And if you look on page 6 right there, I think it shows in Fulton, DeKalb, Gwinnett, there are 1,953 kids in foster care with 3.4 million people and 38 child placement agencies. In Southeast Georgia, there are 1,519 kids in foster care with 630,000 people and 8 child placement agencies. And so what we learned as we started working on this, as we started working through this, and if you look on the little one pager I gave you there, in 2021, when we just had a few offices in Georgia, we were just getting started, our kids stayed in care for an average of 431 days. As we go 2022, 2024, in 2023, we were 325 days. This past year, we were a little bit higher at 352 days. And here's what we've learned. The more offices we plant, the more we have to fundraise. My fundraising, you can see on the left side there, but the more offices we plant, the closer the kids are placed to the birth families and the quicker they are reunified with mom and dad. So if this year, if our kids go home 80 days quicker than what they did before, we had the offices, at the lowest rate the state pays me, which is $63.87 a day, saves the state $1.1 million because the kids are going home quicker. Also, all foster kids are required to be in child care underneath the CAPS program. So in the CAPS program they're required to go to, if they go home 80 days quicker, that saves the state $400,000 just in child care. Commissioner Brose talked about behavior aids and transportation being a big problem, and the overages with DFACs. And so all those things, when the kids go home, all that stops. And so this is just a small savings of what the state would save by having offices in rural Georgia. If you look on the next, on the bottom of that page, it talks about foster families. 2019, the state had 7,510 foster families. This is statewide. This is not just Families for Families. 2023, we were down to 4,500. So in the last 4 years, we've lost 39% of our foster homes in the state of Georgia. Many of those are in rural areas, which causes us to move kids and to transport kids even farther. So on the back of that one pager where it says by the number, Families for Families has about 228 kids in care today when we did this sheet. 166 of those children are placed outside of Metro Atlanta. If you average 2 kids per home, that is 83 foster homes that take care of those kids. And if you look on page 7 in that little book that I gave you right there, you will see on page 7 where I pulled 6 case studies of kids that we have. And so there's kids in Camden County that are placed in Hart County, 320 miles from their birth family. And there are kids all over Georgia that they bring, and those are kids with our agency that they are bringing to Metro Atlanta to have families because the families are not in Metro Atlanta. And so what's happened is we are transporting our kids all over the place. Talk about overages. I did on the other page, on the left-hand side of that back page right there, if you look at, if a child is placed 100 miles from his family, and he has 1 visit a week, that's 100 miles there and 100 miles back, that child will spend 800 miles a month in a car with somebody he doesn't know. We're also paying that person 70 cents a mile. If that DFACS worker from Camden County has to drive 100 miles to see that family and then drive back to 100 miles, that's 1,000 miles a month we're paying at 70 cents a mile with the mileage rate just went up to. That's $700 a month. If they average 40 miles an hour at $20 an hour, that's $500 a month. That's $1,200 a month just in transportation for those kids, which equals to $1.2 million a year in savings and transportation. And so for us, our best business model would be really just to close down all of our offices, just pour all of our money in Metro Atlanta, and we know that the kids would come to us. Last year, Families for Families placed 186 children, and we denied 2,339 kids because we didn't have enough foster homes. And so on the next page, or on that page here, it says solutions and services. Over half the families that go into foster care quit within the first year because of lack of support. So at Families for Families, we want to open 100 homes a year, 60 of those being outside of Metro Atlanta, provide respite care and date nights and mom's nights and dad's nights. We provide clothing and cribs and car seats because we know for families, because my family did it, we know that for families, support is a really big deal for those families. And then we will provide all those services across the state. We're trying to raise $500,000 right now to open the last 2 offices up in South Georgia. And so our ask is clear. It's $10 a day per child to help keep those kids close to their birth families, help get them out of foster care quicker, save on transportation, save on behavior aids, and get those kids reunified back with their mom and dad as quick as possible.
Wow, that's a lot to drink in. Thank you for your dedicated work. Just to have all these facts and figures, y'all, is pretty amazing for us to have to work with at all levels. But are there any comments or questions from the committee?
Of course.
Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. My biggest takeaway from this is the savings in transportation. And I commend you for that. I can't imagine these kids being in a car for 800 miles. Some kids travel well, some kids don't. I wouldn't want to be in a car with a kid 800 miles. Woo!
And that's at one visit a week. Some kids have 2 and 3 visits a week.
Right. You did explain that to me. And I think this program is another model that somebody else needs to look at. But I'm so proud of this whole aspect that you have come up with, and thank you. Good work. Great work.
And tell you, very good marketing of how you put everything together. Everything's labeled out to where it's very easy to read, even Chairman Saines could. And with that project, we can look at everything, simple, explains it, and thank you for the time you put into it. And it's probably the best one we have so far, in my opinion.
And I want to tell you that my cell phone number is in there on the front page.
It is good,
yes, because I heard
you.
you ask about that earlier. So
I'll send you mine.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Look at that. It sure is. Thank you, Wayne. Any other questions or comments?
Okay.
Well, and thank you also for really not only visiting with almost all of us, but for hanging in here this afternoon.
Thank you. And if
I
y'all
just
have any more
appreciate
questions, I'd love to come back and visit and talk to you more. So if anything I help you with.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you so much.
persevere. You're doing good work.
Thank you.
And with that, our meeting is adjourned today. We will see y'all tomorrow afternoon again.